Pius, you weren't at the you didn't you weren't there, of course, and you've been unwell. So were you able to follow from start to finish? It started around 8 a.m. I think it went on for more than 10 hours.
I see. Well, now let me begin, first of all, by thanking you for the opportunity and saying hello to my good friend, the Honorable Sam George, and of course the people watching us, especially the good people of my constituency in Esojaman. And let me assure Sam George that, yes, indeed, I feel a bit unwell, but there's no cause to be alarmed. I am quite responsible. I know that I'm going to be interfacing with people, and I had to check. So rest assured that I do not have COVID. I see you playing around it, but let me assure you there's no cause for alarm. I do have a terrible cold, but these things happen from time to time.
I wish you speedy recovery, my brother.
Thank you.
I wish you speedy recovery, and I also wish you well in your primaries in Esojaman. You win the primaries, but you lose the general election to Thomas.
Well, it's called wishful thinking. I will leave that to the good people of Esojaman.
Okay, so on the protest, did you follow?
I now will come to the protest in a bit, but given that it's the first time I'm coming on national TV after the unfortunate demise of the wife of the former president, a mother and a mentor, the Venerable Teresa Kufuor, please allow me now to use your platform to express my condolences to His Excellency the former president and his family. Also allow me to express my condolences to the predecessor MP to the Honorable Sam George, the Honorable E.T. Mensah, who I understand has also passed to eternity. We pray for the repose of their souls. On yesterday's demonstration, now my position has always been that a demonstration is a fundamental right of anybody. And so it is guaranteed. And we are a government that are very much pro the freedom of the people. And to the extent that no law is breached, to the extent that the laid out procedures are followed in the context of the Public Order Act and so on, anybody can demonstrate at any time. Because, in fact, we are the very people who started demonstration as a way of expressing public dissent and opinion on subject matters that led even to the multi-party democracy that we are all enjoying today, that has produced members of parliament like the Honorable Sam George and so on. And at the barrel of the gun, some people took this vehicle called demonstration to amplify the sentiments of the Ghanaian people. So the NPP cannot be in any way, form or shape, be against people expressing dissent, especially through demonstrations. We welcome it.
Okay.
But they must be done in accordance with the laws that we have set for ourselves.
Yes.
And so that is okay. Again, even if it takes one person, if it is only Sam George who gets on the street to want to demonstrate, our attitude is to take it seriously because he's a Ghanaian, his views ought to be respected. But now I also suggest to you as a political student and a scientist that the numbers that you are able to garner when matters of public interest come will also indicate the acceptability of your proposals to the generality of the people. So much noise has been made about this Occupy the BOG demonstration. And I saw one of the demonstrators, one of the honorable members, argue that this is the tip of the iceberg. For me, that's a confirmation that the people of Ghana do not find value in the proposals that are being made.
The people of Ghana?
Yes, and that the NDC was left on their own. The members of parliament were left on their own. Yes, a few hundreds of people came out, but this is not a demonstration that Sam George knows, and the member of parliament who describes it as the tip of the iceberg. Well, it's the iceberg itself, okay? In a demonstration, you don't want to show the tip of the iceberg. You actually want to show the iceberg itself. And that's what it means, to show that the vast majority
Are you saying that the
people.
number of people who came out yesterday to demonstrate is insignificant to you?
Well, I've said that even if it was one person, I take their concerns seriously. But I'm saying that I initially, with the razzmatazz and the public commentary, the threats that were made, and the comment, yes, I've listened to a number of them. And you saw this, the General Secretary yesterday made the MEDA sign. I don't know what communication, non-verbal communication he sought to make. No. I mean, the National Chairman. He's been General Secretary for too long. Sometimes we confuse him. Mr. Asedu Nketia. So the threats that were made, the commentary, the razzmatazz, the noise, only to see what we saw yesterday.
What did we see yesterday? We saw many people demonstrating yesterday. I was on the ground.
No, even as students.
How many people were you expecting?
Even as students, we have been able to pull bigger crowds. But I'm saying that it's not the issue for me.
It's not.
But I'm saying that it's not the issue. I'm just making an observation that for me, the people see the value propositions that are being made, and the people themselves are making a determination whether this call is genuine, whether the people are honest, and that there is a need for us to do what we are doing. If the people feel the need, well, absolutely. I have found this demonstration, and it's quite needless, because what are we talking about? In the first place, let me start with the outright disrespect to what Sam George describes as the security men.
He said watchman.
Yeah, watchman. I mean, and I thought that, Sam, you have a golden opportunity to probably just apologize and move on. We get carried away and make mistakes. Clearly, from the way you are even struggling responding to now, upon sober reflection, you would not have used the words you used yesterday in terms of describing somebody who, I guess, when he started into public service, you would have been in crèche. You said he had 26 years in the military before even joining the Bank of Ghana. He had served in many United Nations missions successfully. A man of high repute. Maybe you did not know. I thought that you had a golden opportunity to probably just apologize and be humble and admit that, look, it was a faux pas, and that it is not something that next time given the opportunity. But I see a spirited attempt to want to defend it and now blame the NPP for going around with the man CV. We did not write the man CV. The man is an achiever in his own right, rose through the ranks to become a wing commander. And maybe when he started into public service, he would have been in crèche or in primary school or something. Even if you were not, even if you were older than him, even if you are a PhD, even if you are the Speaker of Parliament yourself. And so what? He's a Ghanaian. He ought to be respected. And you two are paid by his taxes. You two do not come and disrespect the people who pay you in this manner. And I think that, again, it's not lost. It's not too late. You can put in a word. We'll move on. But he has a family.
On the substantive matter.
And those people also have to be respected. Who says that it's only members of parliament who deserve the respect of the citizens of this country? Now, even before we come to the substantive matter,
yes,
you are right in suggesting that you don't want to have a conversation around the issues that Sam George speaks to, okay, at a demonstration. And the optics of the receival of the petition is not substantive. That's not a substantive matter. And again, the Bank of Ghana is governed by a board. If you wanted to have a detailed conversation on these matters, you probably would be asking that all the board members who come to the demonstration, and then you want to sit at the table with them. That cannot happen at a demonstration. The petition is the document that you bring that I believe ought to be interrogated properly at the board meeting for redress if there has to be. So to insist that you want the governor of the bank himself to come and receive the petition. How many times when Mr. John Dramani Mahama was president were demonstrations organized against his government that he sent people who were lower in rank than the president himself to come and receive it? How many times? It happens many times. In Parliament, the Speaker of Parliament sends the representation to receive petitions because petitions are not interrogated right there and then when the petitions are presented. And so you see mischief. You see people who just want to give a dog a bad name They want to keep themselves relevant and get in the news all the time. Of course, Mr. Sam George got an opportunity to speak yesterday. It's been reported all over. It's been relevant. And so they want to do this every day. But I ask, okay, we are talking about productivity. You want to be doing this just because you want the governor himself to come and receive.
What's wrong if the governor comes out?
There's nothing wrong if the governor comes. There's nothing wrong if the deputy governor comes.
Come out
there's nothing wrong if the head of security comes.
Yeah, so why,
there's nothing wrong.
If there's
it's not
nothing
substantive.
wrong with the governor coming out or his deputies come out to receive it, just to show respect to the protesters and also to show that they understand the plight of Ghanaians at this time, where there have been constant calls for demonstrations, constant calls and cries about high living conditions, the problems that Ghanaians are facing financially in the country. If the governor and his deputies came out to receive the petition yesterday, what would have happened to them?
Nothing would have happened.
Why could they not have come out?
I don't know.
Just to show Ghanaians that they have heard their cries and they understand their pleas.
Now, I would say to you again that I don't have a problem if the governor himself comes, if the deputies come, even if the governor is the chairman.
If you were an advisor to the governor,
yes,
would you have advised him to come out to receive the petition yesterday or not?
Well, of course. And we are told that the governor was just unavailable.
Of course, what?
Of course, I would have advised him to come yes, out. But if he was unavailable...
So you don't agree with what he did?
No, I don't have to agree or disagree. The man was not available to receive the petition.
Two deputies, two.
Well, but if they were not available, they should ask the demonstrators
but
to...
But this demonstration was highly advertised.
Yes.
They knew that there was going to be a petition presented to them.
Yes. But
one of them could not be available to receive it.
Yes.
Don't you find it a tad bit disrespectful?
No, if they were not available, they were simply not available. And I would have advised the governor, please go and receive the petition. And he says, check my schedule. And I check the schedule and I see that he has a meeting.
To receive a petition and go back into the building.
I'm saying that it is not substantial. That's not the substance of the matter. Who received the petition? Unless there is the petition itself lacks merit and substance. We should be discussing what is contained in the petition today and not the distraction about who should have received it or not. But I'm saying that these are people who are ill-motivated. They are not genuine in their desire. It's a political gimmick for them. So it's an opportunity to probably catch attention of the people of Ghana. And that's why they are saying that they are going to keep doing this and so on and so forth.
But again, let me get
to some of the issues that have been raised. You see?
In the petition.
Well, I haven't seen the petition.
Okay.
So the petition is now secret guarded.
I heard of the petition, the receival of the petition. We know some of the reasons that this demonstration was organized. Mismanagement of the economy, apparent or alleged printing of fresh money to fund the government, forgiving government debts, and so on. Now, Sam George listed a number of them when he came. You've heard, I'm sure you have discussed. What do you make of the calls in the petition or ahead of the presentation of the petition? Are there legitimate reasons to ask the Bank of Ghana governor and his deputies to step down?
You see, our honorable members of parliament in the minority and our friends in the NDC can play the ostrich and bury their heads in the sand.
What do you mean? And
refuse to admit that all over the world there was a crisis really and truly unprecedented. They can play the ostrich and refuse to accept that there were dire consequences of COVID and that central banks across the globe have had serious challenges and that Ghana is not the only country and that there are several. And I'll give you a list of a few of the countries. And they say that the bank has posted losses and that there's negative equity and so on and so forth. But you see, the Bank of Australia recorded in 2022 a loss of over 37 billion Australian dollars. That's also wiped out some of the bank's equity. The UK government faces a 150 billion pounds bill to cover the Bank of England's losses. Now, again, the Swiss National Bank in early January reported, this is even preliminary, a loss of around 132 billion for the year 2022. the American Reserve. I can go on and on and on. Because there was this pandemic called COVID. This pandemic dealt a serious blow to the economies of the world, including Ghana. And that is why in the year 2018, there was no conversation about losses. Profits were posted. And so there was zero financing, for instance, from the Bank of Ghana. Why didn't the NDC organize a demonstration to praise the Bank of Ghana, the governor of the Bank of Ghana, and the the governor of the Bank of Ghana and the governor of the bank? In 2019, the same. In 2020, we all know what happened. And so the bank gave 10 billion. The NDC argues that Parliament is not aware. This is against. It is not true. There are records that the Parliament was not informed.
Parliament approved?
Absolutely. Parliament was. I will show with you. Here is a memo, a parliamentary memo on Bank of Ghana Access Passage Program as part of the COVID-19 Relief Bond Program. 27th May 2020.
And what does it say? It
was submitted by Mr. Kenoforiata that the Bank of Ghana was going to give support in the sum that I mentioned.
How much?
10 billion. 10 billion.
To COVID relief?
No, I mean, this is a part of a program. The monies were given to the government.
Okay.
That's what the NDC claims that, the Bank of Ghana is behaving illegally. They on their own, they did not inform Parliament and so on. But Mr. Sam George knows, the Honorable Sam George, he knows that this parliamentary memorandum was submitted to Parliament on the 27th of May in 2020. They are talking about some in 2022. But assuming without admitting now that even Parliament was not informed, was it the responsibility of the governor of the bank to inform Parliament? Assuming without admitting that it was not even done.
Who's supposed to inform Parliament?
But they should tell us. They know.
I'm asking you.
But they know.
No, I'm asking you.
They know how financial matters are. They know. They know. And I'm asking if it was the responsibility of assuming, that is, even assuming without admitting. But I've just given you evidence that the finance minister has acted in keeping with the law. And that on the 27th of May, he presented this memorandum to Parliament.
Speaking of financial matters.
So, look, again, in 2022, I referred to 2020, but in 2022, there was a need to fill a gap, to pluck a gap. And I'll share some data with you now. What was the expected revenue from the Ghana government in 2022? Around some 132 billion Ghana cedis.
Expected revenue?
No, this expected expenditure, 133 billion. Expected revenue was 99.5 billion. So there was a shortfall of 33 billion.
Okay.
And you know what government expenditure relates to? Items such as payment of salaries to members of parliament, to teachers, to doctors, nurses, policemen. They are all part of government expenditure. The 100
and government spends 33 billion more.
No, I'm saying that was the shortfall between the expected revenue and the expenditure.
Okay.
So that 33 billion had to be found. What would have happened is that the government would have gone to borrow money from the international lending community in terms of bonds, for instance, etc. And the borrowers need assurances. But we all know that in 2022, what happened in terms of disagreements in Parliament on some of the revenue measures, levy, for instance.
Yes.
Some of our colleagues selected to hold the people of Ghana ransom because they had the numbers. And so
what do you mean?
Those assurances, we know the debate, you recall the debates
Yes.
around the e-levy.
Yes.
And the numbers of the NDC as against the numbers on the
NPP.
majority makes it difficult for some of these things if the NDC is not fully onboarded. They took
Ghanaians were
advantage.
not fully on board.
No, not Ghanaians. The NDC minority in parliament.
Representing Ghanaians.
In terms, they don't represent us on many of the things. They represent their political interest and wanting to make it difficult for the current government in the view that they can then get elected.
Let's come back to your point.
So they don't represent us. So the point I'm making is that there was a need. Otherwise, the government probably could have gone to maybe get a bond or something. So that was not possible because the assurances in terms of capacity could not be given because of the parliamentary disagreements. And I give you an example, one on the e-levy and so on. And also there were other obligations. For instance, the maturity on some of the bonds. And now you know one of the striking differences between a bond and other lending instruments, for instance, like treasury bill and so on.
What?
They are short-term, they are long-term. So there are some bonds that are 15 years, 20 years. So the bonds that were due in 2022, that probably we were unable to fulfill our obligations on, were bonds that were inherited. Because they are long-term instruments. Some of them, I just said to you that some bonds can go as far as to even 20 years.
So they were
some of them
inherited
15 years. No, I am not able to give you the specific timelines, but we are discussing the general principles, okay? And Sam knows that I am being honest on these matters, that some of the obligations that we had to fulfill in 2022 relates to actions and inactions of times gone by, long time ago. But that is not an issue. So what do? The central bank has a mandate to ensure that the economy of our country is held and sustained, and that the people of Ghana are cushioned against the real. That is what the Bank of Ghana did, and they went through the laws under the emergency provisions of the law. The Bank of Ghana went through the laws, the laid down procedures to support. The NDC would have preferred.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that the things that you have listed that the Bank of Ghana has done has currently cushioned the people of Ghana and sustained them?
Well, I'm suggesting that.
Because that's the exact opposite of what the people of Ghana are saying.
No. It's because, you see, if the Bank of Ghana had not done what it did,
things would have been worse off.
The economy would have collapsed.
I see. And it has not collapsed.
No, it has not.
It's doing well.
No, I cannot say that it's doing well. What
is your view on where we are?
We have challenges. We have
challenges. You agree?
We have challenges.
And you say these challenges are born because of the COVID-19 situation.
Absolutely, and exacerbated by
Russia, Ukraine.
Absolutely. Any honest observer will admit to this. And it's not just Ghana. And I gave you an example of other countries.
To struggle more than Russia and Ukraine right now?
Look, the kind of global
Ukraine
assistance,
is still producing grain and exporting.
The kind of global assistance that has gone to Ukraine, you have no idea.
And we haven't gotten global assistance.
And it is because
we're currently the highest borrower from the IMF.
No, we are not.
We are.
No, we are not.
Yes, we are.
No.
Shall I read the documents for you?
Please
we are currently the highest borrower from the IMF.
There are many countries that
from Africa. We're the most indebted African country.
Well, because you see, we are also one of the performing administrations in Africa. How many African countries do free SHS, for instance? How many African countries, are you aware, have effective health insurance systems like we have in Ghana?
Well, we'll talk about our health insurance and talk about the kidney dialysis situation in a bit.
So our situation may not be situation may not be the best, but definitely
will you call it one of the best?
Our situation is actually one of the best.
Compared to which country?
Many countries in Africa. Many countries in Africa.
Back to the matter. Did the Bank of Ghana print fresh money to support the government?
Well, if you say that the Bank of Ghana printed fresh money, we should be careful we don't create
I'm asking you a question.
A wrong impression.
Okay.
The Bank of Ghana gives liquidity support. And so that's what the bank gave.
All right.
So let's be careful that people who are not properly initiated do not get the wrong impression about what we are talking about.
The liquidity support that the Bank of Ghana is allowed to give the government, according to the Bank of Ghana Amendment Act, I think in Section 30, it says that the total loans, advances, purchases of treasury bills and securities under subsection 1 shall not at any time exceed 5% of the total revenue of the previous fiscal year. Did the support or liquidity support that the Bank of Ghana give to the government exceed 5% of the previous year, 2021?
Well, if you allowed me to go through the law with you, you will notice that the law makes provision for circumstances where we can proceed in a manner different from what you just read. And those emergency situations, those emergency
I would like
situations,
you to go through the law with me, but
yes.
Before that, I would like you to answer the question. Did the Bank of
No,
Ghana...
I'm confirming what you just read.
Yes, so is that a yes?
But I'm saying, yeah, it is a yes, but I'm saying that it is allowed in the law that when some emergency situations like we saw
in
with Ghana arose, I am not a lawyer, I can't carry, but I know, and I can refer to it and point it out to you, and Mr. Sam George may assist even in that. What
emergency situation happened in 2022 to require more than 5% liquidity assistance from the Bank of Ghana to the government?
Well, the fallouts of the COVID-19, and I just told you the need to fill a gap of 33 billion in terms of government expenditure.
From 2019?
From 2000, what do you mean 2019?
You said COVID-19.
Yes, but the full impact of COVID-19, we all know, COVID started in November of 2019. Mm-hmm. The full impact of COVID-19, as we know, started in, we felt it here in Ghana in 2020 and 2021. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying that the full impact was felt in 2022 when again, the shortfall as against government revenue and government expenditure, we encountered that 33 billion and our inability to borrow money in terms of all the lending instruments available. There was the need to plug that gap. And I'm saying that that government expenditure relates to many things, including the payment of salaries. So unless the suggestion is that we should not do these things.
I'm going to come to you in a minute.
Unless the suggestion is that we should not do these things, I do not understand why.
What was the reason for the e-levy? What was the e-levy meant to solve?
It was a revenue measure. It was to rake in revenue. And what I'm suggesting is that it would have given assurances to any lender that the government of Ghana was going to be able to raise the revenue to pay the monies. But if you haven't proven that you are able to raise revenue, they ask themselves, how are you able to pay? And that's why sometimes it becomes regrettable that we did not have the people of Ghana at heart when we took some of the decisions that we took at the time. Maybe because it suits our political whims and caprices, we decided that, well, we have the numbers,
but
and this is how we want to
travel. Funds were
travel.
raised for COVID-19. We are charged a COVID-19 levy. We're still charged a COVID-19 levy. According to the Auditor General's report, those funds were mismanaged. Now, in 2022, the government has taken more than 5%, the allowed 5% of the previous year's, previous fiscal year's revenue from the Bank of Ghana.
Which is allowed.
To fund the government,
yes,
which is allowed. But you're saying that this extra money that was taken was because of the problems that COVID-19 caused and the 33 billion extra money that the government needed. But the point is, we were charged a COVID-19 levy. Funds were raised for COVID-19. The same thing that we are complaining about, the reason for which we needed an extra 33 billion. Ghanaians were charged for it.
Nah.
So wouldn't you agree,
all the charges,
politics aside,
yes,
wouldn't you agree that the funds could have been managed better?
No, all the charges that you're talking about, COVID-19 levy and all of that, they are all calculated in government revenue.
Were those funds not mismanaged according to the Auditor General's report?
Which funds?
The COVID-19 levy and all the funds that were raised for COVID-19.
No, I mean, I'm sure that the Auditor General would have had issues with some specific expenditures in terms of the COVID-19 levy. I mean, and it is his job, it's legitimate. But it cannot be the case that the Auditor General suggested that all the revenues that were raked in terms of COVID-19 were mismanaged. I'm not sure. That's the understanding I have from reading the Auditor General's report. I'm sure that there were specific line items, expenditure items, that the Auditor General had issues with. And my understanding is that better and further particulars were provided in clarity on some of these issues that were raised.
No, the issues have not been cleared.
Well, maybe you haven't heard the clarity.
What is the clarity?
There were many line items, and it would deviate the argument completely. And I see my brother Sam George eager to also have his take, which is fair. But I'm saying that all the levies, the COVID-19 levy that you speak to and all of that, they are all part of the government revenue, which was 99 billion. But government expenditure was still 133 billion. Unless the suggestion, like happened in other countries, you know that when COVID struck, as a measure, some workers were laid off, salaries were slashed in some countries, you know that. And this way to deal with expenditure. Unless the proposal is that we should have done the same in Ghana, slash salaries, and so on.
Those countries provided a lot of welfare for their citizens.
Yes.
Homeless people are taken care of. Sick people get free health care.
Absolutely.
And so those governments are burdened with that additional responsibility.
Now you are very right.
But unlike here, where we are taking care of ourselves.
Now you are very right.
Isn't it,
let's talk to some judge. That is why there's the need for greater creativity in the management of our problems. But in the wholesale comparison
of our economic problems,
yes,
which have been presented by who?